Hello, thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. I'm David Pendergrass. Well, today I'm feeling kind of sassy. I have been listening to some debates I haven't listened to in a long time. I've listened to I guess every debate I can find online, from John Lennox, Bill Craig, Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Michael Shermer, Sam Harris, J.P. Moreland. I've listened to all of them dozens of times, and I'm going back to some golden oldies. And one of the fun things is that I can look back and think of some of these debates I listened to. For example, two of them that William Lane Craig debated a guy named Victor Stenger. And I remember when I first heard those debates, I was real nervous because Victor Stenger, I thought, gave a real good rebuttal to things William Lane Craig said. And now I look back and listen to it. It's been a few years, and I thought, oh my goodness, that it wasn't good at all. So that's pretty fun for me to look back and think how far I've come in my own faith and my own understanding of the Christian faith. Maybe that's encouragement to you. If you're a Christian, you're listening to this, hey, always learning. My goodness, I'm still learning too. Today I was listening again to a debate that William Lane Craig had with a guy named John Shook. I believe he was in Canada when he did this a few years ago. But anyway, John Shook. And I remember this debate because John Shook, Dr. Shook, is so profoundly condescending in kind of typical atheisty fashion. And I remember all kinds of things in this debate that frustrated me. Well, I was listening to it today, and man, I get so worked up because of the nonsense. And I thought, man, it'd be so, I know that not like Jesus, but sometimes it'd be so fun if Craig or myself or anybody debated a person just one time and acted back toward the person, the atheist, the skeptic, just as condescending and rude and prickish as they were to the Christian. Just one time, wow, you blah, blah. The stuff they say, the sarcasm, it's just so childish. And sometimes my not like Jesus side wants to say, dadgummit. I mean, it'd be so easy to be sarcastic back and make jokes and whatever. And I mean, it's just silly. Anyway, two things right now just got me so worked up. The whole thing has got me worked up again. But two things in particular, trying to encourage you. One thing is, it's very popular in atheist circles. I've seen this in many books. I've seen it on Facebook discussions. I've seen it in other forums. I've heard it in many, many debates. So this is a common deal. One of them is, before I believe in Christianity, before I believe the New Testament can be trusted, I need other non-Christian documents to corroborate the things in the Gospels. I need other things to corroborate it. And that's something John Shook said. Give me some evidence of something, to Bill Craig, give me some evidence of something that was not said by Christians because they already believed it. Now, I'm just going to say this, and I don't mean this meanly, but that's stupid. It's just a stupid demand to say, I won't believe a document until I have a document from someone else who didn't believe it. Now let's break that down how stupid that is. One, it's stupid because it means that no historical event that ever occurred cannot be proven to have occurred unless there is a document written by someone who does not believe it happened. Now how stupid is that? If we have documents that say Caesar was the emperor, he has to have another document that says, no, Caesar did not become the emperor. And until you have a document that says Caesar was not the emperor, it didn't happen. Well, who are you going to trust? Then what's going to happen is the Caesar skeptic is going to say, see, I told you so. This other guy says he never existed. Why are you trying to trust that Caesar did exist? You're just a Caesar lover. Your parents taught you that Caesar existed, and that's why you do it. In fact, the reason why you believe in Caesar is because you're born in a culture where people like to believe in Caesars. That's your problem. If you run into real history is when you listen to the person who didn't believe Caesar was ever an emperor. You're just a Caesar lover. It's not your fault. It's a leftover DNA survival skill that we had when we were on the plains of Africa. Religion helped communities get along. But you're stupid and you don't know the difference. But I'm enlightened. And I know that Caesar was never an emperor. And my evidence is because of another document that said he was not. So that's how stupid this whole thing is. To believe the Gospels is you have to find a document or documents that say, no, I don't believe it ever happened. And then when that happens, they're going to say, see, I told you so. The Gospels can't be trusted. I mean, this is just, I know I said it. It's therapeutic for me today. I'm sorry, maybe not for you to listen to this. It's just so stupid. I can't understand it. I rack my brain. I don't get it. Other reason why it's stupid, as a modern analogy, is if you cannot take the testimony of someone who experienced it, then we need to get rid of all firsthand evidence that's ever occurred. And that means ever. That means when I want to learn about the Holocaust, I cannot ask a person who experienced the Holocaust. I can't. I can't go talk to a Jew. I can't talk to a gypsy great-great-grandparent who was there in the death camps, who was there in Germany when Hitler took over. I can't go talk to a German soldier who's still wearing his uniform or whatever. I can't talk to a person who experienced it because why? Because they experienced it. They're prejudiced. They're prejudiced. You have to somewhere else. Well, you go to the Germans? You want to go to a Nazi? Go to a Nazi? Well, no, the Nazis, they believed in it too. They expect that. Who do I go to? I'm left with no written or oral testimony at all. I have to just pick up not AK-47s, what are the MP40s, those old German guns, or maybe I find paintings on cave walls, or I find old photographs of buildings destroyed. And guess what I'm left with? Almost nothing. I'm going to say there was a war. And what if I came up to you and said, no, it wasn't just a war. I've got firsthand testimony of the people who were there. And then they look at me and say, you're just stupid. Why would you ever? Why would you ever, David? Bless your heart, you idiot. Why would you trust firsthand testimony of a person who lived it when we all know that was 70 years ago? Nobody can remember things that long ago. By now, if they told you, it's a big fat legend. It's just a legend. You can't trust it. Now, this is exactly what atheists demand of Christians. You can't trust the gospel because they're written between 20 to 40 years after the fact. And surely in 20 to 40 years, everybody forgot everything. Everybody forgot everything. And those that didn't forget just made stuff up. They just made it up. Besides the fact, even if they didn't make it up, I can't trust it because you don't have a bunch of other documents that say it didn't happen. Who didn't believe it? Oh my Lord, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I mean, it's just, okay, anyway. Well, Christian, you might not know this, but there are several other documents around the time of Jesus that does support at least that he existed, and at least that he had followers, and at least that his followers thought he did miraculous works. And there's a guy named Josephus and Tacitus and others. Within 200 years, there's over 40 documents, non-Christian documents that talk about this. That's more evidence. It's much more evidence, literary evidence, that Caesar was an emperor or that he ever existed. And that reminds me of something the other day when I was listening to Victor Stenger, who said that he demanded that William Lane Craig produce some evidence from Tacitus or some other Roman historians of the resurrection. He said, because surely if that happened, they would have reported it. I was at the gym listening to that, and I cracked up. I looked like a crazy person. I'm okay with that. But I looked like a crazy. I laughed so hard, I thought that has got to be one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. Listen to this. The historical criterion is this. In the history of the first century, nothing happened in the first century Roman world unless Tacitus or Suetonius or some other Roman historian wrote about it. Nothing else occurred unless they experienced it firsthand. I can't believe those words came out of his mouth. Now, he's a scientist, and that says something, because scientists think they know about everything. No, it's not true, not all of them, but atheistic scientists in these debates, Lord knows they sure do. They think they know about everything almost. No historian, no human being who thinks for a second, thinks that nothing existed or nothing happened unless an historian wrote about it. No one thinks that. That's just stupid. Think about the billions and billions and trillions of events that have occurred in the history of the world that have not have been written down. I'm looking out my window right now. It's a beautiful fall day. Beautiful. The leaves are blowing. I'm not writing about it. I'm not writing down one word about how the leaves are moving. And this one tree must have thousands of leaves, right? And I'm surrounded by trees. All of them, the leaves are blowing all over the place. Every occurrence that happens in the world is not being written down. This is nonsense. And the resurrection that happened in a local small event in Jerusalem would not have been any bit of any... Who gives a rip is what they would have said, Tacitus and other people. They wouldn't have believed it anyway. They didn't believe it. And guess what did happen? It spread like wildfire. Okay, anyway, we have reason to trust first-hand testimony. Now, if you dismiss first-hand testimony, if you dismiss documents that are written within the lifetime of those who can tell about the event, then you have to get rid of almost every single historical event that happened in the history of the world. Almost everything. Outside of maybe before the video camera was invented or something. I mean, even that, you're still seeing visual images. You couldn't listen to people. You couldn't listen to people because their first-hand testimony can't be trusted. You have to find someone else who said, no, I don't believe it happened. And then apparently you have to believe the person who says, I didn't believe it happened. You have to believe the skeptic all the time because they're the ones apparently who are very rational and open-minded because it didn't happen. I mean, this is just, it's nonsense. Nonsense is nonsense. I don't care how many PhDs you have. I don't care what university you come from. I don't care what degrees you have. It is stupid nonsense. And Christians should stop being pushed around and scared to talk to people and say, that's stupid. That's nonsense. Not, it seems to me it's nonsense. Not, I believe it's nonsense. Not, it might be kind of, sort of. And one day I heard a professor or my pastor or someone say it's stupid. If you hear nonsense, call it that. It is nonsense to demand that all historical claims must be corroborated by people who didn't believe it happened. That's just absolute stupidity. It's a nonsense claim. So let me make it very clear here. I've said this in other podcasts and in my book that I wrote, but to say it one more time to make sure we all understand. When a historian, a human being who's trained in as a historian, goes to the New Testament, they do not open the New Testament as a holy book. They read it as a collection of ancient documents. And I still hear atheists, I still hear skeptics talk about, yeah, that's been translated over the years, translated. It's another stupid legend that's going around. Look, anybody who takes Religion 101, if they're a New Testament major or religion studies major, in many universities in North America, certainly in Europe too, they take Greek 101, Introduction to Koine Greek, which means common Greek, because the New Testament's written in Greek. It has a couple Aramaic phrases and Latin expressions, sure, but primarily in Greek. We read it in the language in which it is written. It was written 2,000 years ago. So we read it as ancient, historical Greek texts, not as a massive holy book. It's not a book. It's a collection of books anyway. So when I'm talking about the New Testament, of course, about Jesus, that's 27 documents written in Greek that we study as ancient documents. We do not go to them and just pray over them all the time. Now, when you get to certainly the PhD level. Now, I'm a Christian, I pray, and I get all. I'm not making fun of people who think it's a sacred document. But I'm saying in scholarship, we treat them as what they are. These are ancient documents. Now, they have been conveniently codified or put into a book where they're beside each other, and we can just flip through them side by side. That's wonderful. But in the ancient world, they weren't that way. They were independent floating documents. They were not written to be included in a thing called the New Testament. That took a long time to get to that final name and conclusion and whatever. These are ancient historical documents. It is irrelevant if later on people consider them sacred or not. It's irrelevant. Atheist scholars, Jewish scholars, Muslim scholars, Christian scholars, we all can study the New Testament as what they are at minimum. And what they are at minimum are historical documents that should be taken seriously. Just because they're in Greek and just because they're historical doesn't mean it's all true, but it does not mean they're dismissed just because they're quote-unquote holy books. I mean, nobody does that in scholarship. So if you didn't know that, I'm glad to inform you that these are a collection of ancient documents that we read as such, written into particular people in particular locations at the time. Now, most Christians come to the conclusion later on, because of certain texts in 2 Timothy and other beliefs, that these are also inspired by God. That's fine. But at minimum, they are historical documents that any historian at all can study. So when an atheist or a skeptic says, besides them, what else you got? It's a stupid claim. It's a stupid, ridiculous, nonsensical claim to say these things cannot be counted. They must be dismissed because today they're considered holy books or sacred texts. And that's why the demand to have a non-believer, non-Christian corroborating source that didn't believe any of it happened has to be provided before I'll believe it is stupid. It's nonsense. We have to take the text seriously because they exist and they come from the first century. And the documents that we have come within a few decades. That's unlike any other historical document which we possess. There's nothing like this. There's nothing like it. The lives of the emperors come hundreds of years after the fact. And no one dismisses that. No one says the emperors didn't exist. I mean, it's just a silly, silly demand. It's because they don't want to believe. But no historian, no one in the field makes such demands. Well, I'm done ranting on that topic. I'm about to rant about morality in a second. Another thing John Shook and so many others demand, which is also just as silly. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. If you want to listen to more, go to my website, davidpendergrass.com, and look at one of the tabs that says podcast. If you click that, it'll take you straight to my podcast on iTunes, or you can search for it on iTunes if you want to, A Glimpse of the Kingdom. But also on my website, you'll see another way to get, if you're an Android listener on your phone or you just don't use Mac computers. Again, davidpendergrass.com, and click podcast. It'll take you exactly where you need to go, and you can subscribe from there and get this as often as you like, and also see my blogs and so forth. If you want to get me to come to your organization or church, otherwise to do some consulting, you need to go to davidpendergrassconsulting.com. davidpendergrassconsulting.com. You'll see the information there. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter, you can find me at Dr. D. Pendergrass, at Dr. D. Pendergrass.